Hi, how you doing? I'm Chaplain Bud. We're from the police department in the community, just walking the neighborhood talking about the homicides that happened down the street over the weekend. Just encouraging people, telling you to speak up. If you know of anything, there's plenty of ways to speak up confidentially. So you don't, but if we partner with the police department, most of us are all volunteers. If you partner with us with the police department, we can reduce crime in the area. All right?
All right.
All right, just encouraging you. You guys doing okay?
Yeah.
Okay. We also have pastors here. You need anything else?
Need any
Actually,
prayer?
we got
You
three
need somebody to
pastors.
pray
Need
for you?
prayer, or-
Nah.
Okay. All right.
Well, God bless
Well,
you.
nice to meet you, young man. To the boat.
Yeah. You never know what's going on behind the door, so.
Yeah.
You know, she probably couldn't speak English, yeah.
How much of this is outreach to just see if neighbors are doing okay and to try to get them focused on things like neighborhood watch, and how much of it is hoping that maybe somebody will tell the police something that might help solve a specific crime like what happened last week?
Most of it's the immediate, trying to solve the crime, trying to figure out what happened so that those patterns can stop, and also solve what happened over the weekend. But we also have pastors here, we have community members here, we also have the department here to encourage the neighborhood to speak up more, talk with each other, talk about it. A lot of what happens is fear, and we just want to tell them, you know what, there's ways you could speak up confidentially, and there's ways you could speak up together that will help alleviate the fear.
Have you been on one of these walks before? A few times?
This is, I don't know which one. This is probably my 5th or 6th.
Okay. You've been a chaplain for 6 years.
You're right.
Right, okay. How important are these kind of outreaches?
I think they're very important. I think they're important for the police department because, as Officer Silva said, we do get people who call in afterwards. We call in a few hours afterwards. They get the info, they figure it out when they call in. But I also think it's important for our community members. Because I think it's important for us to connect with the community and show we're all in this together.
How broad an area here are you going today?
We usually go just about 1 or 2 blocks. That's it.
See. So you're probably here like 15, 20 minutes now? Or?
Yeah, I think we're almost done, and we'll head to the new place.
That's about it. Where the shooting is.
Oh, just right on Finland here.
Leadership out of direct the leadership.
Oh, that's right, then.
So where's your church at?
That's in Stockton.
Yeah, well, Joe Silva let us know last night, and yeah, I was here last Friday after it happened. Terrible. How long have you been a chaplain?
About 6 years.
6 years?
Yeah.
What's your name?
I'm Pete Nelson.
Can you spell your last, or is it spelled on your jacket? No? How do you
right
spell it for me?
That's right.
Okay. I'm not trying to be smart, but I know how to spell Pete, but how do I spell your last name?
MEAFUA. The
Thank
island
you.
name.
What?
Island name.
I know.
Yeah. Yep.
So do you also have a congregation where you're the pastor?
I'm a pastor of a home mission church. Yeah. But I'm a name Kelly. Yeah. Been there for about 30 years.
Yeah.
30 plus years.
Where were you born?
In American Samoa.
Nice. Did you get back there at all?
Once in 78.
What?
In 78. That was the last time I went.
40 years, huh? 41 years.
Plus years. Yeah. Oh, well.
Are you going to go the other
On the, I think on
along there?
Volney, yeah.
Volney, okay. Nice meeting you.
Stockton Police Department. This morning. Are you heading further down?
They've actually already circled down.
Yeah. Can I just I'm just gonna ask you a couple questions about what you're doing in general.
Okay.
Can we just be walking while you do it?
Sure, that way. You can walk backwards.
Yeah,
I'm impressed.
I'm pretty well. Jesse, when you're knocking out these doors, what do you? I mean, I know you're giving out information, but what do these people kind of show you?
Well, when we're out here in the neighborhoods after a critical incident, one of the things that we find is sometimes people don't even know what's occurred down the street. They're still trying to get information themselves. It's not uncommon, too, to be in some neighborhoods that are pretty rough, and we find that people have experienced a lot of fear and anxiety following an event like that. So we're able to actually talk with them, give them some resources, and even pray with them and help kind of encourage them.
And a lot of times they're probably scared.
Yeah, a lot of fear. We run into some situations where they're actually having their kids play in the backyard or inside the house altogether instead of going outside. So they're tough neighborhoods.
Yeah. And when you ask them, get on the other side. He parks like I do. When you find somebody who needs to pray with you, what do you try and give them?
Well, obviously, when we pray with them, we're tapping into a higher power, something that they can believe in, that's going to provide them comfort and strength. The good Lord's going to be there for them and help them to acknowledge the fact that He's there for them.
And a lot of times, there's extended family and stuff like that. You're dealing with that too?
Yeah, on occasion. In fact, we'll get situations. You need to stop.
Turn around and go the other way.
All right, is that all right? What's your question again? You said
He's walking and
extended
talking.
family. What does he want to get from that?
Yeah, I guess. What do you see? I mean, a lot of these people are actually involved in the crime and stuff. I mean,
Okay,
that's pretty
so
intense.
actually, when we're out here in the neighborhoods, oftentimes the individuals involved in that kind of incident are actually from that neighborhood. Because in the case today, family members are here, so it's definitely something that's very interesting.
So I'm walking right along 2300 block of Finland Avenue in East Stockton. Right over here, where the cars are parked on the left side of the street, is where a triple murder took place last Friday morning, about right at midnight. 3 teenagers were killed in the shootings, and the police say that they really don't have a motive for these shootings, and they also don't have a motive for 2 other homicides that took place on Saturday, one at a McDonald's and the other on Volney Street. So they're going to go to all 3 locations today and try to get the word out about, tell people how they can report information confidentially and try to see if they can find out anything. And also hoping that the communities where this happened will organize to some extent to help with these kinds of situations and maybe even to prevent crime in their neighborhoods.
Okay. The gentleman at the house.
Bonnie and Ralph.
All right, perfect. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
time. I just wanted to kind of point out what all is going on here.
There's over a dozen people.
Let's see. My photojournalist is here about to step in front of this home. right
Please,
here.
man, look at you.
Done yet?
That was my photojournalist. That this homeowner actually did know.
Oh, that's cool. All right, man.
All right, thanks, bye.
Hey, Roger.
Hey, can I have my 5 minutes now?
Sure.
Hey, this is awesome. It's great. This is Officer Joe Silva. He is the spokesman for the Stockton Police Department. And how effective are these? What are you really trying? What are the prime things that you're trying to achieve when you visit these neighborhoods?
Obviously, we want the residents out here to know that we understand what happened out here. We understand that there's trauma in this neighborhood, and we want them to know that the police department cares and we're not going away. We're going to stay here and we're going to meet with the residents. That's what we're doing today. We're passing out literature about Crime Stoppers so that people can know that there's an outlet how they can report crimes anonymously to the police department. We're going to give them that tool, but also it's just to have the message of unity, people coming together, to let them know that we need to work together. There's this concept that our chief always talks about. It's called shared policing, that the public can't do it by themselves, the police department can't do it by ourselves, but when we work together, that's where we see good results.
Oh. Have any of these led to solving a crime in the past?
Yes, as you can imagine, any time this team's activated, it's for tragedies that occur, whether it's shootings, homicide, sex crimes, something very traumatic that happened, a traffic fatality, hit and run. And once we go out and we educate the residents about Crime Stoppers, that's when we've seen tips come into the police department that we're able to get immediately to our investigators. And in some of these instances, arrests have been made. And obviously, that's the goal, is to try to arrest these suspects who committed these acts of violence over this past several days. But also the goal is to have that community unity, working together.
And I would imagine a lot of people probably don't know how to reach out to the police, or at least don't know how to reach out to the police and feel like their confidentiality is going to be respected. So this is a chance maybe to let people know that they can give tips without giving their name or without having their name become public.
No, exactly. I mean, a lot of times after you have these shootings or homicides in these neighborhoods, and when our officers on that night during the incident, when they're doing their neighborhood canvass, knocking door to door, a lot of people are uncomfortable speaking with that uniformed officer because they're afraid for their own safety because of what just happened, and they don't want other people seeing that they're speaking with the police. So that's why with this neighborhood impact team, we come out a few days after the fact to educate them on how they can report stuff anonymously through Crime Stoppers, where we don't know who's actually calling in. And it's a great program. And if anybody has information on any of these homicides that have occurred, Crime Stoppers will pay a cash reward up to $10,000 for any information that leads to an arrest. And you can do that by calling Crime Stoppers, area code 209-946-0600, or going right to our Stockton Police Department's Facebook page and submitting a tip that way.
Is there a way to text a tip too?
Yes, you can also text a tip to the police department, and those numbers are right here in this pamphlet that we are passing out to all the residents that we're going to be visiting today. And you can also go to our website, stocktonpd.org, and also submit a tip online.
Thanks, Officer Silva.
No, thank you for coming, Roger.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had a chance to talk with anyone on any of the doors that you've knocked on?
Yeah, I just talked to a young man and young woman actually who went to my high school, Franklin High School. I was telling them that one of the young men, Remilio, was in the summer program I used to run at UOP. And they were telling about memories of him walking out with his football gear and how he loved football. And they were telling me that usually this neighborhood's pretty quiet, that this neighborhood has a strong sense of community, that the neighbors know each other. And that this last kind of homicide was kind of shocking and jarring. But they also talked about we talked about how to call in if there's anything, doesn't have to just be crime, if there's a broken street light, if there's trees that need to be cut, if there's abandoned cars that the city cares. about this neighborhood just as much as we care about every other neighborhood in this city. So that was encouraging, especially because they represent the new generation. They're still hopeful. And they were like, well, no, this is a setback, this is horrible, but we'll keep doing the work to make sure our community's safe. And I appreciate their optimism, and that makes me optimistic for Stockton's future.
What do they think about so many people walking the neighborhoods, including yourself?
I think they mentioned it was a little bit overwhelming to see the sheer amount of people and the cameras, but they also mentioned it was appreciated, that they matter, that they're seen, and that, again, the city cares about what happens in every neighborhood in this city, particularly when a tragedy like 3 homicides happens.
Important to show up the next day and let everybody know you're there?
Well, I think it's important to show up the next day, but I think it's more important to show up 2 weeks from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, because these issues, again, for the past 30 plus years, this city has been double or triple the state average in homicides. And last year we had a 40% reduction. That doesn't mean we've arrived. That's clearly this weekend shows that we still have a lot of work to do. So I think it's important that we show up each and every day, but particularly when tragedy happens, so let people know we're not running away, we're not afraid, we believe justice should be served, and we also believe that Stockton can and will be a safer community.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.